All righty, we're going to go ahead and begin. We want to welcome everyone to our board meeting tonight. It is August 20th, 2020, 5:30 p.m. We're meeting on Legacy Campus in the Professional Development and Technical Center in the boardroom. And we'll go ahead and begin with roll call.
Larry Jepson, board member.
Randall Bagley, board member.
Steve Norton, superintendent.
Roger Pulsfer, board member.
Kathy Christiansen, board member.
Chris Corcoran, board member.
Jeff Nielsen, board member.
Terry Rhodes, board member.
And Dale Hanson, business administrator.
Thank you. All right, we will next have the pledge, and that will be led by Chris Corcoran, and then he will state our mission statement.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our mission is to educate students for success in a changing world.
Thank you. That probably couldn't be more appropriate than this year, for sure. All right, we are going to go ahead and have some public input, and I know we do have a couple of people here, so we'll just let you go ahead. Chris, and your wife. Oh, okay. Yes. And Dale's going to get the 3 minutes going before you begin. Just a couple of things. First of all, you've signed
It
up,
says 3
and we
minutes.
have Michael Housley there, okay, as well. You are limited to 3 minutes, but you two are going to combine your 6 one way or the other. And no personnel comments, and please be respectful.
Okay.
Okay. We ready? Okay.
Okay. My name is Chris Sessions. I'm a physician assistant. I'm also married, and I'm a father of 3 children. And the 3 children attend school here in the Cache County School District. Reasons why I'm here, I wanted to talk about the enforcement of the rules and orders in the Cache County School District, the need to be consistent with the rule enforcement, and to discuss the hypocrisy that has been seen among the school leadership, as well as the state public health order exemptions. And I'll see what I can get through. So to begin, to discuss the appropriate enforcement of rules and orders. I was able to go visit Ridgeline High School today during their freshman class orientation, and what I saw there was somewhat appalling. There were, upon my entrance to the building, I saw down the hall, there was a group of about 6 class officers wearing their $245 class officer jackets that set them apart from all the other students. They were there with one of the faculty at that time. Later, I saw them with 2 other faculty, which happened to be the vice president of the vice principal, sorry. As I was standing there listening to them and their conversation, they had directions in the floor of which way students could walk, and they were just directional hallways. She was teaching them how to enforce the rules of wearing masks and of going the proper direction in the schools to the other students. And what I noticed was some of those students were reluctant to do that because they're having to do that to their peers, their colleagues, which are other students. And so it is setting them apart from the other students, making them feel superior, giving them power and authority over the other students in the school. And nowhere in the school board policies does it say that students shall be the one enforcing school board policies or rules or mandates or orders given by the state. It does, however, say that the school faculty and staff are the ones who are supposed to be enforcing the rules, not the students. And so this is completely inappropriate behavior that I saw at the school, and is something that does need to be addressed by the school board. Because if it happened at Ridgeline High School specifically, I'm sure it will happen in other schools as well. And by doing this, it encourages bullying among the the students there. As noticed today, I have a daughter who's in a class officer, and she was reluctant to enforce the rules because she is not supposed to, and she began to be bullied by other class officers because she wouldn't do that. And ones that used to be her friends, which as of today, the freshman orientation day, she is no longer friends with that group because they kicked her out from what happened. It is appalling that we are allowing this to happen as a school district when our first priority is the safety of our children here. And under the Cache County School District policy, it does state, let's pull it up. In the policy of student discipline, you may be removed from school for bullying. That's one thing. So according to the school policy, are we going to enforce that rule when we file the complaint that the children were bullying her and they get kicked out of school? No, that does not happen. We do not follow those policies correctly like we should. The other thing that I'd noticed during there was the class officers were giving tours to the freshmen, and they were spreading misinformation to the students. They were telling the students that we're supposed to go one way down a hallway because it will stop the spread of COVID-19 versus going both ways. How is that appropriate? That is misinformation. There's no studies, there's no scientific evidence that is what happens. They still congregate, they're still in groups, not social distancing, but walking in one direction down the hallway. How does this make any difference in the schools and in spreading the stop of COVID-19? I want to go on to be consistent with rule enforcement. Can I know how much time I have left? Oh, it's up there. Okay, great. Thank you. I noticed that they are strictly enforcing the rules of wearing masks, enforcing the rules of walking in a certain direction down the hallway at school, at Ridgeline High School, when there is a booklet of Cache County School District policies which are not being enforced. There's rules which are not being followed at that school, but we don't care. We just want people to wear a mask, right, and walk in one direction down a hallway because they might catch COVID-19 from other people who might or might not have it. It's absolutely ridiculous. The dress code policy, that's an easy one that we're all familiar with, or should be. I saw multiple violations of that while I was at the school today, and nobody cared about that. In fact, some of the people enforcing the rules of wearing the mask were not following the dress code policy themselves. To continue on with the hypocrisy, as that leads right into that. When I was in the school, I was observing what was going on in that main hallway, and I did have permission to enter the school. I stopped at the front desk. They gave me permission to go in and do that. And I noticed there were faculty walking the wrong direction in the hallway, because the end of the hallway happens to be right next to the administration offices. And in order to get to the administration offices from the other end of the hallway, you have to walk all the way to the end of school, back around to the office. The vice principal, as well as another one I witnessed, walked down there and then walked straight back. How can we enforce these rules to the students when we aren't doing them ourselves? Also, on top of that, I noticed in the administration offices there were multiple faculty that were not wearing the face mask at all, and there were multiple faculty throughout the entire school not wearing them correctly. I just want to clarify, I am 100% against wearing masks. I do not believe it does what the government says it does. The number one spread for COVID-19 is through droplets, which means touching surfaces that others have touched, from touching their face and their spitting on each other into our eyes. It does not get spread that way. Well, it does, but chances of us doing that are very slim. That is why I'm not wearing a mask today. How much more time do I have?
I think you're,
It's actually been 6 minutes, like taking your lifetime.
I wasn't aware of the time frame, so do I get another 3 minutes?
no.
No, it was on the screen.
Okay, I'm just going to end with my closing statements then. Before we decide on strictly enforcing one rule, let's make sure we enforce all the rules with the same effort. If we're going to follow the rules, then let's follow all the rules and not make exceptions because it's more convenient or for fear of offending someone. Faculty and staff need to enforce the rules and not the students. Faculty and staff need to stop the hypocrisy and follow the rules that they are going to be enforcing. We cannot force the rules if we can't even follow them ourselves. And the hypocrisy continues with the dress code, with multiple other codes in here, and I could go on with more examples where I saw teachers standing in the hallway not wearing a mask at Spring Creek Middle School, telling kids they need to put their mask on and wear a mask when they were standing there without one on. I can give names of all of these people if you guys would like that afterwards. And with that, I conclude. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I did give your phone number to Tim Smith, and he will get in touch with you. Okay, thank you. All right. Mr. Housley. Okay, so Dale, where does it show so they can see? The time will show up on the screen, so you'll know when your 3 minutes are up.
You guys okay if I unmask just to help with the sound? Okay. I'm Michael Housley. I'm a parent of a student, well, 2 students in the public school system right now. I'm also a physician, and I service your employees at the WorkMed facility here in town. I also service Utah State, the FAA, and various private companies. I've also worked at the microbiology lab of a pharmaceutical manufacturer before I became a physician.
Is that microphone on?
Yeah, you just need
Okay.
a little closer.
And I work a fair amount, well, occasionally with Dr. Olson, who is the director of the BSL-3 microbiology lab at the university. There's only one level higher than that, and only the government has that that I'm aware of. But anyhow, this is my first pandemic of this proportion. I hope it's yours as well. And I appreciate your expertise in educating students and the like, and I never expected, and I doubt you expected, to be filling in a role of public health. But by circumstance, the school district is filling a public health role. And I think your plan to reopen is a bold plan. Some would say too bold, and I might lean a little bit that way in some ways as well. And I appreciate you paying very close attention to the public health recommendations and identifying and isolating infected people. Distancing, masking, and sanitizing, those have all been proven to be helpful. Okay, this is a droplet transmitted infection. It is through people's expiration being inhaled by other people. That's number one. Surfaces, there is some potential there, but number one is certainly airborne, well, droplet-borne. My concerns, though, are that some of this is hard to do. Okay, identifying and isolating, the health department has been overwhelmed from time to time and have not been able to contact everybody. Distancing is paramount. And I'm concerned that there may not be adequate distancing in the facilities of the school. The size of the rooms and the occupancy, and certainly the buses. I'm really fearful for the children that have to ride buses. I want my child in school. I sent my first child to school today. She'll be in school tomorrow. My second child will be there too. But I want my home to be safe and my family to be safe. And school attendance is the number one risk to my family at this time. To myself, to my grandparents, well, not my grandparents, my children's grandparents. And so please enable your teachers, your drivers, to be able to have some teeth in masking and distancing. Do the math, please, and in modeling. I was at the high school yesterday, well, not yesterday, Monday, and the principal's masking technique was lip mask. Granted, this was outside, just outside the door, but with several people within 6 feet. And the potential is even greater than 6 feet if you're in music, singing, band, and athletics. And I can provide you copies of at least the best studies or reports of how distancing should actually be quite a bit greater in those activities. But thank you for your expertise in educating kids. Thank you for grappling with the imposed responsibility of public health that has fallen upon your shoulders. Not an easy thing, but please try and enable the people in the trenches to get the job done, because just parroting the public health mantra isn't enough. I mean, it's really what happens on the ground with it. So please do more if you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like anyone to call you and talk to you about your information, or are you good with just reporting?
I'd be happy to get, because I'd like you to share any documents you might have.
Could I get your phone number?
And if you've
How
got
about if you just write-
information, you sure? Yeah.
Will you just write your phone number down on this, please? We appreciate everyone's input, and it is an interesting time, and it is hard to please everyone. And our main concern is, as a school district, as a school board, is that we try to keep everyone healthy and able to go to school.
And even if it comes to closing, which I think there's a greater than 50% chance that it will, I would still like to see my children in school, even if it means going to have time to allow adequate space in time or geographics for them to attend.
Okay.
But I am very concerned that this is not being instituted in a way that's likely to be successful. We'll see. We'll know in about 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. All righty, we're going to go ahead and move on, and we'll come down to our consent agenda, and I'll take a motion to approve our consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve our consent agenda.
I second.
Any questions or discussion? All righty, we'll go ahead and vote.
Okay, all the votes are in and unanimously in favor of the motion.
Okay. All righty, our action agenda is a request for the approval of the early learning plan. And I will go ahead and take a motion to approve.
You want to say something?
Okay. All right, you want to say something in addition? Okay, let's wait for the discussion part. Okay? You can come over if you want to. Sorry. I'll take a motion to approve the early learning plan.
I move that we request the approval for the early learning plan.
A second.
All right, now, any questions or discussion?
I have a question. So there are 2 goals listed on this early learning plan, one for the reading composite and one for fluency. And I'm not sure how, the way it's worded, I'm not sure what it means, but is it 10% more of students will improve from beginning of year to end of year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have a percentage of students that meet the benchmark, and we want to improve that by 10% in our first grade students by the end of the year.
So 10% more at the end of the year versus the beginning of the year?
That's correct.
Got it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Is that hard?
Well, this was our same, these 2 goals were the same as the last year that we approved them, you guys approved them all last year. By the middle of year, which is the last data point that we had improved it by 5%. So, it's hard to say what we'll do this year, but yeah, so I think it is achievable. And we did increase their curriculum to add to it with other strategies that might help more this year than last year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote then. Thank you, Paula.
Okay, all the votes are in and unanimously in favor of the motion.
Okay. Okay, we'll move down to our reports, and the first one is the utility easement at North Cache Middle School. And Scott.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me come and share with you my report. I received a request for an easement from Gary and Crystal Birmingham, who are here with us tonight. And they are requesting a utility easement along our east border of the North Cache athletic field. That's right there. Tim is bringing up the map so that I can properly show that to you. But that should be in your packet, the easement, utility easement agreement that was prepared. That actually will show not a great picture of the requested easement and where that would belong. So the easement is actually right, as you can see, right on the, thank you, Tim, right there, along the east border with the homeowners, and there's a row of trees right there. That spot in particular is, I think it was a roadway, or it's really not a usable piece of the athletic field. I think the kids can walk on that, but it would be a very favorable place to put a utility easement in that spot. We currently do have a irrigation easement with the Birminghams that goes along the south border, the entire, the yellow line right there that goes along the south border with their property, which is right to the south of ours. We do have an easement with them at this time. So they are requesting that utility easement, and I am here to answer any questions that you might have about that.
So is the school to the left?
Yes. Well, it is to the,
Yes.
correct, right there.
Okay, so, okay. And the road that goes up by is to the north? On the other side?
Yeah, that's the
Yes.
road that, I can't remember what road that is.
Oh, okay, so,
600. The main highway is down at the bottom.
all right, so the top is not north?
No.
Okay,
Sorry.
gotcha. All right, I was totally lost. I was trying to figure out how this fit in up there. Okay,
There's the main road. The seminary building's right there on the corner.
Correct.
okay, okay,
That was the seminary building that was purchased by Lowers.
okay. All right. Anyone have any questions?
Okay, so this is at the top of the field.
Correct, yes.
What is this easement for if we already have one on the south side of the property?
It's for utilities, not irrigation. So they would like to, I think their intent is to build on the property in the upper eastern portion of that property, and they will need to bring in all of the utilities, sewer, water, and electricity in from that utility easement. That's just a secondary irrigation, the other easement on
Okay.
that side.
So will the trees that were just planted,
They will not be affected.
okay,
Yeah, it's a 15-foot easement from the top of the piece to where they would like to have the easement at that
Okay.
time.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, we will go ahead and move on to number 2, the fraud risk assessment. And Dale?
Okay. When I received some initial information from our auditors as we were preparing for this year's financial audit, there was one item mentioned there that was called this fraud risk assessment that we need to have completed and presented to the school board. So this was news. I don't remember the state auditor's office ever coming out with this formally, something we need to do. So what it is actually taking a snapshot of the district's policies and procedures that are in place, just to kind of measure it and see where it falls on the level of risk we have for internal controls and that in handling of funds and other procedures in the district itself. So, if you see that online there, it talks about areas about, do we have policies in place for conflict of interest or procurement or ethical behavior? And it goes down a list of a lot of these things. And so I've gone through and checked the ones that I have been able to identify. And so what I wanted to focus on were the items that I couldn't identify on there as being in place in the district. Because when we put the score together, it actually totaled to 310 points on their scale. And looking at their graph there in the top portion there on the right, with the score of 310, it puts us right at the very top there of the moderate risk level, just almost in the low risk level, moving up to the higher. But so the areas that I identified where we are lacking is, one is the reporting of fraud and abuse. And it actually goes also down into number 7 down below. It says, does the entity have or promote a fraud hotline? And so it's something we haven't formally had in place here in the school district, where if somebody had concerns about maybe somebody mishandling funds or whatever, that they could anonymously submit a tip for us to investigate if it would. So that's something that we could actually make a change on. That
Does not the one that the state has count?
no, yeah, this is strictly just in district it's
Okay.
looking at here. So this
Because that's where they all go.
right. Yeah, right now there is a state hotline for that, and I'm not aware of any that have come through for us through that system. But anyway, that's something that's a possibility we could do as a district if we wanted to up our score here. The one area that I know we could easily make a change on is number 5. It says, have all of the board members completed the state auditor's online training at least once in the last 4 years? So the state auditor did come up with a number of different small segments that are part of a training series we can take online. They're saying actually we're required at least once every 4 years to review those training items. I did put on the agenda where it has the description of what I was going to talk about here. It says that the school board online training from the state auditor's office, and then it has a link there that you could click on, and it would take you right to the page for that training, where you can sign on and create a sign on and then go through the process there.
Where is that?
The blue line
Yeah, it is in blue.
on the
It's-
agenda.
Hyperlink.
Yeah, right there.
Oh, okay.
So that's one that
Okay.
I think we could easily catch up on that one there.
What about number 4, Dale?
And then number 4 is, this is another one. It says that our employees and elected officials required to annually commit in writing to abide by a statement of ethical behavior. So we do have the code of ethics as part of our policy.
Right.
But as far as going through a formal procedure of requiring in writing that every employee in the district and every member of the school board reviews that annually, we've never gone to that extent. And I mean, that's something we can do. Question is,
So in your mind, is there a point of diminishing returns, or what?
well, see, that's part of the auditing and internal controls is that, if we hired an officer to stand at the side of every employee and watch everything they do every day, we could eliminate any fraud or any misuse of public funds potentially. But again, then the cost very much outweighs what the potential loss might be. So that's the one thing to consider with internal controls is, we could do everything, but does the cost of doing it or the effort of doing that justify what you'll achieve by doing so? And so, I mean, That's interesting. I just think of how we're starting each year. You know, if we went through a process of trying to track every employee to review that code of ethics and formally certify that they have done so each year, I guess it's something we can do, but it's a monumental process to do that also.
So pardon my ignorance, but what would a moderate rating, what does that mean in the whole scope of things?
Yeah, it really doesn't give you a comparison to anything else. This is the first time it's actually come out. So how we compare to other districts, I really can't tell you at this point.
So
Does it affect our ability to do business, or as far as other institutions that we are involved with, what kind of effect does it have on that?
Yeah, it's not reported to any entities. It's
Okay.
really the state auditor, I think, trying to get a feel for what type of controls are in place across the state.
Okay.
So it's just kind of a temperature measurement of where are we.
Well, if all the board members did the training, it would put us in the low risk category.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think that's a
That would be a
reasonable
really
thing.
simple thing we could do.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should do it. And we can just get on here and take it, right?
Yes.
So I was just going to make a comment. When I was teaching school, we always had to do a ethical statement when we gave tests. And it seemed like that wasn't really a hard thing to do. There was just this presentation that we either got in faculty meeting or we went online to get it. And then we just signed a paper saying that we were going to follow the ethical behavior in giving the end of the year school testing. So are you thinking of something more intense than that?
Well, I don't know, I'd envision it maybe being handled through the Bridge program or something like that, where each employee is assigned to take that educational snippet and then it certifies who has done it and who has not. I mean, that's a possibility to, if we have to track that every employee has done this.
So that's a nightmare.
Well, we don't have to do a training snippet though for the employees. They just have to sign the paper.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
are we certain that they mean every employee in the district?
Well,
Or just those who are in the positions that are listed toward the beginning of this document?
well, it doesn't give the definition. Just the wording of it says our employees and elected officials.
Right.
It seems to me that they would probably mean those employees who have direct responsibility for school funds, but maybe you could clarify that, because it would not be that
Yeah, that'd make a
hard
big
to get 10
difference.
signatures versus,
Well, it's like the superintendent and I
Hundreds.
are elected, I mean, we're employees of the district, we're not elected officials. So if it even is just referring to the school board, the table here, that would have been one way to describe it.
just even looking at the definitions, it lists the board chair, the clerk, the CAO, the treasurer, that's it. And so I'm wondering who what kind of circle
Yeah.
they'd
Well,
be drawing.
I can easily contact the state auditor's office and get their direction on that too, so. Anyway, so it was required that we actually present this to the board so they have a feel for where we're standing. And then, we can set goals and move forward and make put some of these things in place that would help us too a little bit.
So do we have to approve this, or we just have to know this?
No, just it has to have been reported, so,
Okay. So
yeah.
are any of you opposed to doing the training online?
No.
Is
Okay.
this something that the district audit committee can help with in some way?
Maybe as we discuss a fraud line or something like that,
Okay.
system for reporting that way, that might be helpful that way.
So we could discuss that in our next meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't tie up everybody. We can just bring the plan.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Terry, will you kind of follow through on that
Uh-huh, I will.
with Dale? All right, and if we do those two, then do you feel like, okay, we've done what we need to be?
What about that fraud hotline? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
And that's what we could work through with the internal audit committee
Okay.
itself and see what it would involve and how it could best be done.
Okay, so we're not meeting with the internal audit committee for a few months. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, this, like I say, is just a snapshot in time, so they'll do the same thing again next spring.
Oh, Okay.
or well, actually next summer. And then
Okay,
that's where we can make a comparison, see what we've been able to improve on.
okay.
Just one quick question. You are audited, right, externally?
Externally and internally.
So,
And internally.
so, you know, this number 3, does the entity have a licensed or certified expert as part of its management team? Does that not include audits?
Well, I've interpreted that just members of our administrative staff, if any of them hold that, any of those ratings, which none of us do that I'm aware of. I did look up to see what those actual ratings, or those
After the CPA
acronyms
one,
actually stand for.
CIA?
Yeah, CIA.
We don't
all
have
I could-
anyone CIA?
I couldn't find anything other than Central Intelligence Agency on there, so I'm not sure if that would be the qualification they're looking for.
It might be
but-
like certified internal auditors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
sounds really
sense.
good.
That does make sense.
And if,
CIA sounds better.
and CIA might actually be a very low bar in terms of certification, and so if it would be easy to achieve that, you know, that threshold for, like, say you, if you just had to do some additional training to get that certification, then it might be worth doing, you know, if it's not that taxing, no pun intended.
And that might be something even our state association could focus on, that we've never really, focused on trying to get these other
Oh,
certifications.
USCO?
Yeah. That might be a good way for
So
them
will you
to-
look into number 3 and see if we actually are doing that with Alan and
Well,
Cal?
It
what's
has
her-
to be someone on the staff,
Oh,
yeah, they're not on
Okay.
our
part of the
management.
management
okay.
team.
So that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
he's
it-
external.
Okay. All right, then, if we cover it at the internal audit meeting, are we good on this one? Okay. Should we all do the training as soon as possible before we forget? Okay, we can do
Yeah, we
that.
only have to do it once every 4 years, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
awesome.
So like I say, the link is on today's agenda, so you could go back to that anytime. and-
Who will remind us
Yeah.
when our 4
I'll
years
give
is
you.
up?
Well, I won't, 'cause I'm not gonna-
Well, let's do it soon so we
know.
don't forget. Okay, thanks, Dell. Anything else? Okay, down to our board committee reports, and I think, Jeff, if you have some things to report, we'll go ahead and start with you first.
Oh, okay. So Kathy asked me to take a shot at a strategic plan and maybe some goals for the upcoming year. And basically on at least the strategic plans I've been in the past, definitely you want to have a mission statement, a vision statement. And in my opinion, the ones that we currently have I think are very adequate, although if we want to have some discussion on what, if there's anything that we need to revamp on that. And then we would state our priorities. And so I spent some time on the USB site, and some of the priorities I pulled off of that site because I believe that we should be aligned with that also. And then I put some down, and so this is a brainstorming, right? So I'm throwing this out there, and you guys can chop it up, and we'll come up with something better. But the other 3 that I thought would be priorities would be effective stakeholder communication, empower continuous improvement, and then comprehensive resource management. In my mind, those are some of the priorities that I have. And then we would set goals that align with our priorities, and then we've got some metrics or key process indicators that tell us how we're doing with that. Now, what those metrics and what our goals are, we can talk about that a little bit. This is throw it out here for discussion, and then we'll refine them in our retreat. Now, the goals that I set were based on our evaluation that we did for our board. There were concerns about using data to develop our strategic plan, and the fact that we have a strategic plan and we operate according to that plan. And based on the input that you all gave, these goals were some of the, are centered around the areas of concern that we had, that we expressed in that evaluation. So anyway,
So on the goals part,
yeah.
would this be in place of the ones that we have set right now?
No, this is just the strategic.
Just for the,
Just
this
for
is
the
just for the
plan.
plan, yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Because I was going to say, we don't have one thing on here about students, so that makes sense to me now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, please noodle on this for a while, and we can, when we get to the retreat, we can maybe definitely refine it. And
Okay.
put some numbers to it, however.
Thank you. So what I'm thinking on the retreat is that the majority of the time that we spend will be on the strategic plan.
Okay.
All right? So don't lose this paper. Keep it in your file of papers.
I emailed it to you too.
Awesome.
Or save it in.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff, for doing
Yep.
that. That's a lot of work. But at least you've got us started, so that's good. Appreciate that. All right. Okay, then Chris, you wanted to have a little more discussion on high school graduation, and I put you on this agenda because we didn't have a lot of items. So is there anything more you would like to say about?
Not right now. I mean, I feel like, you know, based on the discussion we had, whenever it was, a month or two ago, it sounds like our options are open. And so I think I'm fine to table that for right now and discuss that at a date that's more appropriate. Get
Okay.
bigger fish to fry.
Okay, all right. And then Terry has mentioned a couple of ideas that she had about community engagement, and that is also going to be part of the retreat, to talk a little bit how we can reach out to our community better and let our patrons know what's going on. And anyway, Terry, do you want to just let the board know what the couple of ideas that you had were?
Sure. Well, I feel that this year especially, we need to be in the schools more, to observe for ourselves and to be supportive and to give parents easier access to board members. And so one of the ways that I thought that we might do it is by our study session each month in our board meetings, our board meeting study session, so the first meeting of the month. We could have several of us at a remote location, which would be a school. The school personnel, the office staff, or the principal, or the PTA could advertise that school board members will be in our school this day as part of their regular board meeting. If anyone wants to talk to school board members personally, come to the meeting. And we would be logged into the meeting because we've proven that we can do that remotely fairly easily. And that would, I think, I don't know, do you feel like that, do you think that would make us more accessible?
What do you think? Any comments on the idea?
I think the one place I'm not clear with is if we have a lot of business, are folks going to be willing to wait? Or are they going to expect to walk in and have us there to talk to the minute they come in?
Okay, good point.
Well, we could set it up so that whoever is visiting the school could be there 30 minutes early or whatever. It couldn't be Jeff, 30 minutes early.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Or we could say that there will be time at 7 p.m. after the meeting, to visit personally, or, something like, I'm just trying to think of ideas of how we can make ourselves more accessible to parents and schools this year.
So the couple of questions that I had was, would that be able to be recorded? So like this meeting is being recorded right now with all of us here. Dale, how would that work, the logistics of it all?
Because they're two separate recordings. If, with what we're doing here right now, we do, and we put on YouTube, but if we go Google Meet, that's actually recorded separate from this. So I'm not sure how, and actually on Board Docs, I'm only allowed to put one recording of the meeting itself, so I wouldn't be able to have both of them there that I'm aware of.
Unless we have isn't it possible to have a microphone at a school that links into this meeting? Isn't it, is it possible to have a remote microphone that links into this meeting?
Yeah, anything's possible with enough money and ingenuity and technology to make it happen. It would be just a little bit technical, but we could probably make it work.
Your guys in the IT department are brilliant.
Yeah.
So I know we have the ingenuity part covered. Anyway, just a thought I had
Okay.
that as I think about trying to make ourselves more accessible.
Okay. The other question that or the other point that I kind of wondered about, we tried to do the parent university, and Kurt Jenkins went to a lot of work to put together that presentation, and we did not have one parent show up for us. So I'm wondering.
Well, and maybe we won't, but at least we've done what we can.
Okay.
And we know that we have.
Okay. Any other questions for Terry? So how about if you just kind of think about it, and we'll just bring it up as we're talking about community engagement and see if that's something we'd like to do. I personally like being here with everybody. It seems like discussion is easier when we're all together. But I don't have an opinion against trying that and seeing if it would ever work. Anything else you want to say, Terry?
It sounds like there are maybe two issues. One is accessibility. And, I think people in my precinct, just based on emails I get, seem to be able to find me. But the other, and I think that this is kind of what you're striking at, and I know the two are kind of linked, but the other is visibility. And so, I think maybe it's more the visibility than the accessibility. And I agree with you. I think if we could find, if it's through that means, or, if there are other things that we can do to improve our visibility, I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Well, in your precinct, it's probably in 2 square miles. My precinct is 25 on one side.
Yeah, I live in the big city.
So accessibility for me and for Roger can be challenging.
Sure, yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on it, Sue?
I like the idea. There, in past boards, and I think we even did it here for a while, we just moved the whole meeting to different schools in the district and held the regular meeting at another location.
And it worked?
And it works well. It takes a little more effort. Dale probably sitting over there saying, "Oh yeah, here we go again," because it's not that easy to record and everything. But it does get you out into the communities, and if you were to do one, say at North Cache, and one, say at Ridgeline, at least once a year or something like that, moved around, you do get out into the different areas and allow people who have to travel here the opportunity. But having just part of the board there is also, I haven't tried that. Sounds intriguing. We can make it work technology-wise. Might as well give it a shot.
Okay. So when we meet, let's decide if that's something we would like to try and see if it's feasible, and maybe focus on just 1 or 2 meetings and see how it goes, to give it a try. Everybody up for that? like the idea?
If we do, I think we ought to have three, one on both ends and one in the middle,
Oh,
just so it's easy.
so everybody has a chance. Okay, okay.
Yeah, one positive item might be that we'll learn that we definitely have to speak into our microphones. It helps.
True. Okay, thank you, Chris and Jeff and Terry. All right, we'll move on down to the president's report. And the president's report is basically this collection of materials that Carolyn has prepared for us. She's also put it on board docs. So those of you who like to go paperless, you can do whatever you want with the paper. Those who like the handouts, they're just reference materials. And there's one on here that I just copied off and put in because she didn't have it. I forgot to mention it to her. And that's the school board member address and home list. All of these are on board docs under library, so you can find it there if you need to, but sometimes I just like to pull it out and be able to write something down on it, and so we've got the paper for that. Let me see. Okay, so just so everybody knows, we all got the invite to the delegate assembly. Chris is our representative, and so he'll be attending that for us. We appreciate that. And I am not getting the challenges that are coming from USBA for each month. I don't know how come I'm missing that. But what is the challenge for this month that our board's supposed to do?
Doing the school community council training on the Power Up MBA site.
Okay.
So it's just one of those 15-minute trainings that you have to do with the quiz at the end.
Okay. So it looked like we won last month.
We did?
We get coupons or something.
We should be getting gift cards.
Because we completed it. How many districts completed it? Do you know?
Only 6 did 100%.
Oh.
But that was more than in June.
Okay. So before the end of the month then.
So who is our board prompt that will remind me? How are we-
To do it? Well, if I can find it, I'll remind you. I'll tell you
Okay,
where
right.
it is. Okay. All right. Then I just wanted to say that when I was teaching school about the last 15 years, I really tried to do a lot of group work with the kids. It was something that business wanted the students to be able to do, and because they hadn't had any prior for the first few years, I had this whole corner of my room that had, here's the assignments, the leader, the recorder, the questioner, the materials person, blah, 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 and then the assignments of what they were supposed to do. But I had this really fun-looking poster that I had found somewhere and just copied it onto a transparency and then made a poster out of it on my overhead projector, if you can remember what those are. And it showed this one person, but when you looked at it, that one person was made up of lots of other people, a whole collection of them. And the verbiage on the poster was, all of us is smarter than one of us. And I just thought that was so great because councils really can come up with some great ideas and do some great things when we really collaborate and work together. And I found that to be very true of this school board, that we really are able to come up with some good ideas. I appreciate everybody's difference of opinions and your different backgrounds and perspectives, and I think all of those things, when we bring them together and hash them out, we end up with a really better idea than if just one of us was expressing it. So I hope everyone always feels like your opinion is valuable. And poor Chris was the only dissenter last time, but that's what councils do.
Mhm.
You know, we do not always agree on everything, but the other thing I like about this council is we can disagree and we still are happy with each other, and that's awesome. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, Steve.
Okay, first off, I'd like to thank you for moving the retreat. That ended up being the night of the viewing for Kelly Renlisbacher, and appreciated the opportunity of being able to represent you and the board members that couldn't make it that night. I also express thanks from the Kelly Renlisbacher family for all the kindnesses that were shown from district members, especially school board members, and the flowers and the nice things that were sent to them. I think all of you got the message that Dee Ashcroft has come out of retirement to run that school for us for a year. I can't think of anybody who could do a better job of providing that staff with what they need during this upcoming year. And I think Dee's actually very happy to be back in the saddle and having those elementary kids around. Gary and I went out to introduce him to the staff, and Gary and I both had our opportunity to talk to that staff, but I can tell you, Dee stood in front of that staff, and within 3 minutes, he had them right where they needed to be, and they knew that he was an elementary principal, an educator, and somebody who cared for them. And so I just want you to know that they're going to be well taken care of. I don't know if Debbie said anything to you, but I'm sure Debbie will learn to love him as much as she loved Kelly during that time. And great first day. It's not perfect. We had every school visited by somebody who was from the district office, and many of us got to more than the sign schools that we had. I started off the day, I wanted to see from the first car that pulled into Green Canyon's parking lot until they moved out and had them registered in their first classes. I watched that whole process. I went from there all the way down to Heritage, and I watched every car pull into Heritage and drop off their kids. A few rode bikes and a few walked, but it's mainly, I think far more people come in cars than they do on the buses or anything in that school. I wanted to see how the masks on little kids was going and what kind of issues were being raised by parents and kids, and I can tell you I didn't see a struggle of one parent with one elementary kid. And then I took off and visited a couple other schools that I wasn't assigned, and then I went back to Green Canyon to see how they were handling lunch. And Skyview was another one at school that I visited, so I got 2 of the 4 high schools. I can tell you, I think we got the mask thing down. There may be under 5 or so parents that had some concerns with masks today. And there have been a lot of work going up to that. A lot of meetings, a lot of parental contacts, and I think we have an agreement that that's the best thing that we can do with the tools that we have. Social distancing is going to be really hard for us. There isn't any question, and those who have concerns that we might not be doing that as well as we should, I have those same concerns. And the one thing that's going to help us a little is we have fewer kids coming to our school. Now, not in the level like a Murray. Murray had 50% of their kids elect to either go online or homeschool. And so they're working with 50% of their kids, and 50% of their kids every day of the week. That's like an A-B schedule. But everybody who wants to come gets to come. So the large congregation areas of high schools, the commons area, the cafeteria, the gymnasium, and all those activities that take place there are really difficult. And so we're going to be spending a lot of time. It's not going to be that we've solved it in one day. We're going to have to continue to work and solve. But we do have smaller classes than we've ever had. Gary looked at the enrollments in our elementary schools. And if somebody from another part of the country was listening to this, they would say, when I say we have only one class at 30, they would probably say, good grief, 30. But 30 is that's the largest number we have on only one classroom is that high. So we have some classrooms that are down in areas that we've never had before, and that's 14, 15, 16. A lot of kids are in online programs. A vast majority of them stayed in our online program, but there are some who've gone to other online programs. Depending on what happens with this virus and when kids decide how they're going to continue their education, we might have to modify some of our class loads next year to accommodate for kids that don't come back if they don't come back. But a great beginning to a school, and I just could not leave tonight without thanking all the employees of this district who put in monstrous amounts of time over this summer pulling this off. And it's just amazing the amount of work that they're willing to put in, not on the payroll, to make things happen for this school district and for the kids that they love so much. So it's a wonderful area to work with such wonderful people. We won't know for sure how much we've been affected till we get to October 1, when we have our October 1 count. So when we get to that point, we'll start looking ahead and making changes for next year if we have to. But it won't affect us this year. It won't affect our finances this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if the state looked at what's happened with most school districts and made some adjustments over the coming year on and how they might look at next year in relationship to funding. Other than that, the secondary's kind of phasing in, so they only had a fourth of their kids today, and I could see some issues. So when you get all those kids there, we've got to be on our toes, and we've got to be looking at ways that we can accommodate large crowds in confined areas and not have them spend much time together and make sure they're masked. So that's our challenge.
So Superintendent, do you have a pulse on maybe the degree of anxiety that the educators have? And the reason I'm saying that is several of my friends, they're educators that I can talk pretty freely with, and they were very impressed with the training from the principals to, get everything going, and they felt that it was pretty comprehensive, and their degree of angst had subsided somewhat with as they saw how the plan was going to be implemented in that. And I just wondered, what's, to the best of your knowledge, what's kind of the pulse on that right now?
I think you had the full gamut.
Okay.
There were people awake at 3 I've talked to in the morning, and they didn't go to bed till 1 because they were still at their classroom trying to get them. My daughter was one of them. And I woke up at 4, and the whole gamut is in between. I know that once they got to school, they were excited to be there with kids. That kind of overrode the feelings of anxiety they had because we've got this virus floating around among us. And we're all wearing masks and we all look different. But once I was there, like I said, when Green Canyon was feeding the kids, and so they were lined up and they were socially distancing and waiting for their burger. And I think everybody, and I mean this was monumental, a grill set up, so you had at least 20 people probably cooking hamburgers. I think most of those teachers took time out to come over and tell me it was good to be back with the kids. So I think once they got to school, and I heard that at every school I went to, but I didn't get to all of them. You've got other people sitting out here who went to those schools. I don't know if they'd like to add anything, but there's been a lot of anxiety leading up to it. But I think once we pulled the trigger and let the kids come back and got the teachers with them, I think there was just a general sigh of, okay, we're back to where we were in March, and let's see if we can make this work.
Okay. It's probably a little early still, but I was just curious.
Yeah.
From a parent or a father of a daughter that teaches, my daughter called me after school today and she said, I said, how was it? And she says, those kids were so excited to be in the class. The kids had smiling faces and they were happy to be there. You know, and my daughter is one that she's had some health issues, but she was there to do her job. And she felt the excitement of those young kids in the 4th grade as they entered the classroom today. So we thank you for what they're doing.
Anything else? Okay. Well, just once again, thank you, Superintendent, and everybody in the district office. This has been a landmark summer in trying to put all of this together and have it work. And I know we'll be thinking of things as we, changing things as we move along, but it's been great how well this plan has come together. I have grandchildren up in Oregon who they've canceled their school and it's all online until the middle of November. And they couldn't put together a plan like this that would work. So,
And a lot of it depends on what's going on around in the community. We couldn't have either had the community not been in the situation that we were in the spread of the virus among us, and it'll continue to work. We'll have some cases. Our teachers know we're going to have cases. I think if we handle them properly, we might have some classrooms closed, and we might have some schools that might eventually have to close for a bit, but it won't be a complete shutdown, I don't think.
okay, thank you. Mr. Housley, did you have something?
I'm happy to hear the exuberance and the excitement that children have. I'm excited for my child to be at school too. But that melts away pretty fast. My condolences to the principal and the families, friends, and coworkers. I didn't know him, but if we had any more of that, our excitement.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. All right, anybody have anything else? All right, this meeting is adjourned.